In this video, you'll find dreams, you'll find happiness, you'll find obsession, you'll find lies, you'll find blurred truths, you'll find acceptance of all of life's gifts and curses. You'll find, most of all, the beauty and imperfection that can be found in all of the above. In this video, we'll continue our journey to pick apart the various openings of the Monogatari series, this time focusing on the second season, which I find to be one of the most compelling stories the medium has to offer. If you have yet to check out the first two parts of my analysis on the Monogatari openings, what are you waiting for? Just open it in another tab. I'll wait. Okay, I'm going to move forward under the assumption that you are all caught up. In this video, like the others, I'll be discussing and detailing the symbolism and parallels that can be found in the OPs of what is referred to as Monogatari Series' second season. That is, the adaptations of Neko Monogatari Shiro, Kabuki Monogatari, Hana Monogatari, Otori Monogatari, Oni Monogatari, and Koi Monogatari. So, without wasting any more time, Gatari, let's jump right into one of the openings that introduced me to the series in the first place, Gatari, Chocolate Insomnia. Chocolate Insomnia is, as I said, one of the first things that introduced me to this series years before I actually took the plunge. I actually remember getting a friend of mine to do a cover with my lyrics back when I was in college, not knowing anything about what the series was about. It's another opening that seamlessly transitions from related images and, once again, features our favorite cat girl, Hanekawa, but in a much more vibrant and seemingly happy tone. I didn't think of this until watching both Perfect Slumbers and Chocolate Insomnia back to back, but it could be that the former is showing us what happens while Hanekawa is sleeping, while the latter is showing us what happens when she wakes up. It's an OP that really relates with its music, considering there's an overwhelming chocolate motif, but there's something else I want to focus on for this analysis. First, as the box containing Hanekawa is open, she's asleep, but once the clock hits 6 o'clock, she awakens, strengthening my argument that this is meant to be the polar opposite of Perfect Slumbers. Next, there's another dancing segment, but notice the figures next to her are black cats, hinting at Hanekawa being host to the Sawari Neko, a white-haired cat girl affectionately nicknamed Black Hanekawa. So, in a way, she is a black cat, despite not having any characteristics one might normally see in a black cat. She's then taken to an unknown location by the cats, which leads to her eating a piece of candy, overwhelming herself in the process. Hanekawa is teleported to a different location, where she's wearing a white dress and her cat ears are displayed proudly atop her head. She's also surrounded in sunflowers. According to Pro Flowers, sunflowers represent adoration, loyalty, and longevity, which are three things that can represent Hanekawa as she comes to terms with herself as the Sawari Neko, and upon accepting the tiger apparition. She becomes an incredibly loyal friend to both Senjogahara and Koyomi, and one could argue that she adores them both for different reasons, which is why she goes to such lengths to save them later on. In this OP, however, it's the awakening of such emotion, as it's this arc when she becomes confident in who she is, and accepts what happened in her past with a desire to move forward. Ending the OP, Hanekawa jumps from the box, growing a pair of angelic wings, an image which is revealed to have been part of a storybook. I feel this OP is showing Hanekawa's growth as a character. In the beginning, she sleeps within a sealed box, which is then unsealed, allowing her to see the world and interact with it. She's taken to a new place by the Black Cats, where she is seemingly given the courage to jump from the box to attain new heights. It could be that the Black Cats taking her away could be meant to represent how accepting Black Hanekawa has given her the ability to rise above her station and take significant strides in advancing and improving herself. It could also be that accepting her apparition gives her the right to exist in the same world as Koyomi, a new and exciting place that, while much like the old, gives her a chance to become better. In this arc, Hanekawa is given courage from taking on her tiger apparition and is able to strengthen herself as a result. In this case, I'd suggest the box represents her old life, where she wasn't at all confident in herself, where she was always allowing herself to become stressed and therefore allowing Black Hanekawa to take control. In jumping from the box and sprouting a pair of wings, she's coming to terms with who she is and accepting both the good and bad as part of her identity. She's free to go anywhere and do anything, even to find a certain lost teacher. Happy Bite reintroduces everyone's favorite lolly, Hachikuji, as her character is explored further in her second arc, nicknamed Kabuki Monogatari. Much of this OP is reminiscent of Platinum Disco, mostly because it's got a lot of visual fluff that keeps the audience attentive, but there are a few things I want to discuss. In the OP, there are blocks that feature road signs, which likely point towards the fact that Hachikuji's character is one that is closely tied to road signs, considering she was killed by our favorite tsundere, Truck-chan. That, paired with the fact that she was, and still is, represented by the lost snail, pretty much tells you all you need to know. In this OP, compared with her debut, she walks with a more confident stride, which should tell you that she's become a much more well-rounded character since her introduction. That's not to say she's not still a klutz, as we see her falling from the blocks, and it seems she's gotten lost, which is more than likely representing her overall character rather than anything specific. There's a segment where she's jumping from block to block, but she seems to be stuck in a loop, never getting any further, which is something I think relates to her status in limbo. She's on Earth as a wandering spirit, not moving on because she's fallen in love with Koyomi, so she just keeps on moving, even if she doesn't get anywhere in particular. It's then that the giant snail's shell comes crashing down, breaking apart the environment, breaking apart the dream, killing the illusion that she still stands a chance with him, perhaps. Either way, she doesn't seem to be upset about it, maybe because the sky has become visible, allowing her to go or do anything she wants to do. She plays hopscotch on the blocks, and a bit of her snarky side comes out as she smirks in regards to the perfect landing, but she falls, bringing out more of her clumsy side. As she realizes that she's landing atop a giant statue of Koyomi, her face softens. I think this OP is doing what many of the Monogatari Series second season OPs try to do, which is to emphasize just how much each character has grown since their introductions. In this case, Hachikuji was introduced as a manic, lost little girl who just wanted to get home, but now it's clear she's focused, driven, and has figured out what she wants, even if she knows it's not possible. As she, quite literally, falls in love with Koyomi, the expression she makes says more about her current state of affairs than any words could. It's a happy face, but not the face of someone who's excited for her future, or lack thereof. It's the face of someone who is maybe acknowledging her feelings while also accepting the futility of said feelings. It's the face of someone who knows there's no future for her, but she's looking fondly at the time she's had with the object of her affections. I hope no one got too used to Nadeko Sengoku being the cute little snake murderer that she was in Renai Circulation, because if so, then you're in for a rude awakening, as this is Moso Express, which somehow either turns her into a tragic villain or a straight-up yandere. Otori Monogatari is actually one of my favorite arcs because it does such a good job of making Nadeko into a completely new character and a terrifying threat to Senjogahara and Koyomi that isn't actually resolved until Koi Monogatari. If it wasn't immediately obvious, this OP shares a lot in common with Renai Circulation, namely the fact that much of the visuals are taken straight from the earlier opening, just reversed to signify Nadeko's villainous transformation. Everything in this OP screams sinister, from the way her face is rarely shown up close, to the breaking of the pencil implying she was pressing down hard on it out of either anxiety or anger. It's practically the opposite of her previous opening in every conceivable way, and that's what makes it so fun. As the 39-second mark hits, the chorus breaks loose, distorting the visuals, which I am suggesting is meant to represent her stark shift in personality as soon as she becomes the snake deity's vessel. It's a segment that leads straight into an oh-so-familiar shot of Nadeko and Koyomi walking opposite each other, but this time, it's meant to show how they're on opposing sides of this conflict. Nadeko is accepting of the snake deity, while Koyomi is doing his best to contain it. At 46 seconds in, another familiar scene of Nadeko at her desk is altered so she is face down, surrounded by a Japanese character, which, in my research, seems to mean mouth, but if that's wrong, please by all means let me know in the comments. If this is accurate, however, it could have two meanings. One, Nadeko is trapped within the mouth of the snake, forever at risk of being bitten or losing her life. Or two, the character resembles a box that Nadeko is now trapped within. In any case, the commonality between the two theories is that she's trapped in her current circumstances without many options for rescue. She can't see that Koyomi is trying to help her because she's just not looking hard enough. She's intentionally isolated, trapping herself within a set of impossible circumstances. She's also trapped by her insecurities, socially, romantically, and otherwise, which is why she accepted the snake in the first place. At 59 seconds in, the transition doesn't look like much at first, but upon closer inspection, it looks a lot like white snakes, something that should be familiar if you've made it this far. It looks like Nadeko's hair once she's accepted the snake deity. As the 1 minute 7 second mark hits, Nadeko's true intentions are made clear for all to see. She wants nothing more than to take Koyomi away from Hitagi, and if you've seen the series, you'll know she's willing to kill them both if that's what it takes. Yet, she can't see anything wrong with that, as the last thing we see in this OP is a malicious smile, followed by Doki Doki, which translates to "it's heart pounding." It says a lot if you look at the rough translation for this song, about Nadeko's personality. If the world can't be the way I want, then I have no use for it anymore. There's only one thing I desire. Everything. Everything, everything, everything. White Lies is an opening that wasn't included in the version of the series on Crunchyroll, but it's still an interesting, albeit shorter, opening that should definitely be discussed here. It covers the arc titled Oni Monogatari, which is devoted almost entirely to Shinobu Oshino, the vampire who transformed Koyomi in the Kizu Monogatari films, and now resides within his shadow. I think one of the biggest things to take away from this OP is its art style, which is actually the same as the EDs for more or less the entire series. It's a rough, edgy style that prepares the audience for something darker and grittier than usual. At 8 seconds in, we see who I'm going to assume is Shinobu rowing a boat, and there's a fast pan along with the transition into a forest area. At 25 seconds in, there's another quick pan over what looks like Koyomi standing over his bike with someone who could either be Ogi Yoshino or perhaps Hachikuji standing on a bridge above him. From there, we're taken through yet another transition into a similar fast pan, but this one looks ancient, as if it was set in the era when Shinobu took on her first follower, and speaking of, it looks like we see him standing atop some sort of shrine. Closing out the OP, we're shown quick shots of multiple characters, and if you can't identify them, it's interesting to keep their order in mind. First, obviously, is Shinobu, then Hachikuji, then Ononoki, Izuku Gaien, Ogi Yoshino, and then, who else but Koyomi himself. I'll explain why that's so interesting in the next video where I'll tackle Owari Monogatari. I don't think this OP has too much to pick apart as much as it just tells the story of Shinobu's venture to Japan eons ago after she made her first follower. This'll come up again a little bit later, so I'll leave it there for now. Kogorashi Sentiment is my favorite of the OPs so far because they intentionally chose this particular style of art and animation, which is so obviously satirizing 80s and 90s anime. But it's also got a lot of stuff to take into account, so let's get into it. From the start, we have a lock on our rather unreliable protagonist, Kaiki Deshu, Vice Grip. Hitagi is seen on a beach, but we're shown a normal view of her lips in a different, more usual art style, which I think is showing us how Kaiki sees her. It's suggested he has feelings for her, but he's also a chronic liar, so who can tell? As showing that there's more than one way to view any given situation, as this arc shows by making the actual events uncertain at best. Doesn't. Or that she's facing the reality of their situation with resoluteness, which she is. Then we're shown my favorite shot of the OP, which is that of a snake wrapped around a crab, clearly showing that Nadeko will kill Hitagi if they don't do something to stop her. The rest of this OP is just repetitions of the themes I've already discussed, such as but they continue to stare it straight in the face without faltering. I think that despite the cheesy, tropey style of this OP, it's actually an accurate parallel to what happens in this arc, as Hitagi and Kaiki attempt to save everyone from Nadeko, who, as we know, has become an evil yandere snake deity. In clever ways, the OP shows that both Hitagi and Kaiki see each other in different ways, but in the end, they're putting their differences aside to fight towards a common goal. The last day of my adolescence is another Kanbaru OP, which explains the abundance of lilies, which, as I explained all the way back in part 1, is a symbol that latches onto Kanbaru for good reason. I'm willing to suggest that Kanbaru is a character who, in and of herself, is meant to represent that phase in our lives when we shift from that state of childlike wonder, innocence, and naivety to the phase where we see the world isn't always fair, righteous, and true. Sure, she's one of the more perverted characters in the cast, but I feel like if we looked past that, we can see how naive she was in making a wish upon the Rainy Devil's paw, and she's had to mature in order to deal with the ramifications of that decision. This OP is more or less straightforward as it tells a story of two characters, in this case it's Kanbaru and Roka, and their rivalry and friendship. I know they were actually rivals, but I'm having a difficult time remembering if they were actually friends or merely passing acquaintances. I'm pretty sure it's the latter, in which case I'd suggest that it's showing a more idealized version of the events of Hana Monogatari, with them having a friendly chat about the parts of the devil, then playing basketball. If it helps, Hana Monogatari was kind of one of the more forgettable parts of the series for me, so a lot of it is still fuzzy. I am, however, sure about one thing. Once the chorus picks up, it shows Tsuruga running through various locations, presumably in an effort to find Roka and perhaps apologize for their argument earlier in the OP, but I feel this is actually supposed to show her desire to reach Roka and help her pass on. Her chase ends, like it does in the actual film, on the court as they play against each other, with Roka promising to give up her search for the devil's parts if she loses.